Hare Krishna, welcome to Peacock Patashala. In this video, we are going to study about Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development. So, constructing the mind. Actually, Jean Piaget focuses on the constructivism. His theories indicate that learners actively construct knowledge by interacting with their environment rather than passively absorbing information. Let's see about Jean Piaget brief information. Jean Piaget was born on 9th August 1896 in Nüchel, Switzerland. He was a famous Swiss psychologist and biologist who studied how children think and learn. According to Jean Piaget, children actively construct their own knowledge. They interact with environment and organizes some of the cognitive structures. Jean Piaget given the cognitive adaptation loop. He given the term schema. Schema is nothing but it is the basic unit or structure of mind. The word schema, which means it is the mental framework that helps the individual development to organize, process, and store the information with their environment. Okay, and the schema is not permanent. It is known by behavior, which means modification takes place. Therefore, we can also call adaptation. So, adaptation is how children updated in current cognitive organizations and existing schema with new information or world. Actually, adaptation has two types. One is assimilation and another one is accommodation. Okay, in the picture, assimilation shows child sees a cow, forcefully adds new data to existing schema and calls it a dog. So now child is calling a cow as a dog. This is what assimilation. Assimilation is nothing but using existing schemas to understand new informations. Okay, then the another type is accommodation. Accommodation here in the picture, it is the disequilibrium triggers an update. There will be a update takes place. The child learns a cow is different and creates a new schema. In this stage, the child is differentiating a dog and a cow. Okay, now which means accommodation is nothing but changing or creating new schemas to fit new informations. It is how children adopt their cognitive structures to match new informations in the world. Then the child is attaining equilibration or equilibrium. Equilibrium is nothing but the balance between assimilation and accommodation. Here, equilibration means balance is restored, allowing the child's mind to advance to higher level thinking. The child is now going to think in a higher level. This is what the cognitive adaptation loop. Before going to the stages, you need to understand these kind of steps or loop. According to Jean Piaget, the cognitive development progress through four major stages. Okay. So first stage is, we call it as sensorimotor stage. This is 0 to 2 years. And the second stage is pre-operational stage, 3 to 7 years. And third is concrete operational stage, that is 7 to 11 years. And at the last stage, formal operational stage, that is 11 plus years. We can discuss one by one. The first stage of cognitive development is sensorimotor stage. In this first stage, learning happens through sensory organs and physical actions. Sensory organs you all already know: seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, smelling. So in the picture, there is the one word perception. Perception means it is understanding the world through senses. Perception is very important in early childhood learning. Perception is nothing but it is the process by which the brain receives and interprets information from the sensory organs. Okay. For example, if a child sees a red ball and thinking it is a ball, so the perception is taking place. The important thing in this stage is sensory organs used for exploration. And another thing is the child usually develops object permanence between 5 to 8 months. Actually, what is this object permanence means? The child understands that objects continue to exist even when they cannot be seen. We can take an example. If a toy is hidden under a cloth, the baby tries to search for it. So this is what object permanence. So application in science and maths pedagogy. So in maths lens, the child is going to search for and finds if any object or toy hiding behind another object. And according to science, so the student is going to feel or learn the different types of objects like a metal spoon, sponges, and ball through direct touch and observation, and coming to know the objects have a permanent quantity and existence. The second stage is pre-operational stage or pre-operational mind, 3 to 7 years. It is divided into two phases. One is role play from 3 to 4 and language development from 5 to 7. Means the child is playing a role of teacher and playing as doctor, playing house games. Okay, so in this stage marks the birth of symbolic thinking. Symbolic thinking is nothing but children's use symbols to represent objects or ideas. Example, a stick becomes a sword in pretend play. Okay. Now, also during this stage, the child is developing language from 5 to 7. First sign of language development is babbling, which means the child produces repetitive sounds such as baba, mama, dada. And later, the child is going to speak sentences, express ideas, communicate with others. Also, in this stage, the child develops egocentrism and some other limitations. Egocentrism means the inability to consider others people's point of view, which means they focus on themselves and how actions will impact them rather than others. And also in this stage there is a lack of concept of conservation, which means the illusion of centration, focusing on only one feature of an object while ignoring all other aspects because they lack conservation. They judge quantity purely by visual height. So, step 1 there is a equal value, and the pour takes place in step 2. In the step 3, the centration trap, and step 3 says the child incorrectly concludes the tall glass as more water solely because the water level is higher. This is what lack of conservation ideas. Also, they can struggle with logic, and there will be a strong dependence on parents, high emotional reactions, and sudden stubbornness, which means lack of compromise. And also in this stage, the children will try to imitate also, and there is a negativistic independence, and parents look like enemies. See the picture. The child assumes the adult sees exactly what they see, despite the physical barrier. This is what a pre-operational stage. Now this is a application regarding maths and science pedagogy. Maths lens says because of centration, if a teacher shows a spread out row of biscuits next to a compact row of the exact same number, the child will insist the longer row contains more biscuits. This is what lack of conservation. And regarding science, when presented with a big stone and a small stone, the child will immediately assume the big stone is heavier, judging mass and weight entirely and solely based on visual size. The third stage is concrete operational stage. This is 7 to 11 years, actually, which aligns with middle childhood. Children are beginning to be able to demonstrate much more logical thinking, although they need concrete materials to help them reach the correct conclusions. Here, the illusion of centration is broken. We have seen the example of centration, means tall glass and short glass. Okay. Now, children is finally understand conservation, that quantity remains equal despite shape changes. And children can develop classification, which means grouping objects by common characteristics, like grouping animals and fruits, vegetables under that categories. And children also develop a seriation, which means arranging objects logically by size or length, which means example arranging sticks from shortest to longest. The only limitation is children cannot yet think abstractly. They need concrete objects, which means they can see or touch. Now, applied concrete operational pedagogy to maths and science. In maths, the child can perform reliable addition, subtraction, multiplication, and measurement. They graduate from counting physical objects to solving real life concrete word problems using tangible logic. In science, students can now understand simple, observable experiments with clear physical variables. By growing one plant in sunlight and one in the dark, they can logically conclude that sunlight drives plant growth. Now, this is the last but highest stage of cognitive development, that is the formal operational stage, 11 plus years. Okay, here the mind breaks free from concrete objects and becomes capable of contemplating ideas that are not physically present, such as justice, democracy, and infinity. Also, child develops logical reasoning, which means thinking logically and systematically. And also, the child develops hypothetical thinking, which means thinking like if then. Example, if a plants receive fertilizer, they may grow faster. Like that. Also, students develop deductive reasoning, which means solving complex problems through systematic, like step by step. Okay, then also student develops systematic planning, which means they can plan experiments and test solutions, and can also solve his own problems, and it is more scientific approach to the world. This is what formal operational stage. This is the applied formal operational pedagogy in maths and science. In maths, students can manipulate symbols that represent unknown quantities. They can solve algebra problems by balancing equations through abstract, deductive logic rather than counting physical objects. And in science, students can now execute the complete scientific method. They can formulate a hypothesis. Example, I have already told you. Systematically conduct the experiment and critically analyze the abstract results. So, this is actually a brief summary of the stages. You can go through this. Here, this is also a brief summary by the visual representation. One concept, but four minds. Okay. Uh, Thank you, everyone, for watching this video. I hope you understand very well. Hare Krishna.